What? Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Sorry about that, guys. That was a strange one. Do apologise. But just to say, of course, welcome to ORL here on a very fine Friday evening. Obviously not the most gracious of starts, I suppose, to this broadcast. But, of course, welcome to Friday evening here at ORL, of course. My name's George Morgan, also known as CRGGO, as some of you might have seen me on, here at most Sunday evenings. Of course, not forgetting the odd league I do on a Wednesday as well. Of course, you can catch me on Twitter, CRGGO, as well. Of course, I tweet quite a bit now these days, getting quite good at it, of course. Splattering Twitter all day long. But welcome here to the channel. Of course, it's where we obviously host the ORL Online Racing League F1 races. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, of course. And I've got to say, very, very much looking forward to what we're going to be seeing this weekend at Canada as well. Of course, the Pro Series has kicked off. It's a very special week in the world of esports, as well as Formula 1. It's been absolutely unbelievable, of course. Who might have guessed it? Jarno Opmeer tackling the top end. P1 twice in 3 rounds. Phenomenal work there from the Sauber team to sort of reign their dominance from the start. Of course, we all predicted it. We saw Jarno mid-season here, of course, from the very start of the season right through to now. He has been very, very strong indeed. And he has actually taken that same form that we've seen so far this season and brought it in to the esports environment. Also great to see the likes of Danny Moreno as well and James Baldwin both tackling in the face of adversity. Obviously, both didn't have the most gracious starts in qualifying, but they've turned it right around. And the McLaren team looked very racy indeed in the last couple of rounds. And I only think it's only a matter of time, really, for a lot of these drivers to sort of just soak up the pressure a little bit, get used to their surroundings, get used to the format. I mean, of course, the likes of James Baldwin performing across many territories in the world of motorsport, not just sim racing, but motorsport in general. And it's great to see him in amongst it, and well, in the Esports Pro Series as well. Not forgetting Alvaro Caraton, Barry Burrowman back on your screens as well. And, of course, many others. But, guys, I've got to say, very much looking forward to what's going to be happening this weekend. Of course, it's the ORL Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal, the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Bounds and bounds of history in Canada, of course, notorious for the names like Jacques Villeneuve sort of ring a bell. Of course, getting a world championship win in the Williams car, and of course his father Gilles Villeneuve as well, who of course unfortunately succumbed to that dreadful accident. And of course his name, great honour for Gilles Villeneuve, of course, to have his name acquitted or brought into the circuit, the fabric of Montreal at the circuit there, which is absolutely brilliant to see. But guys, great to be back on the screens, of course. Just want to hype up as well the giveaway that we've got going on. Of course, I got sent these HyperX earphones, and I'm sure you guys saw my little segment before, but of course HyperX very kindly donned me a couple of earphones, and the guys at ORL as well. So big thank you to the guys for supplying me these. Now you can win a pair of these as well. If you take part in the ORL HyperX giveaway, you can get onto the Twitter page for ORL and get yourself a pair of these if you just tag 2 friends in the status. And of course, not forgetting to obviously like and subscribe to all the socials, etc. So make sure you do just that. But guys, just a little preview before this weekend. Check this out. "14 corners.
He'll have no DRS because he's 5.6 seconds away from
Capacity of over 100,000 people.
But looking further back, Kevin going toe-to-toe with Zone.
The Virage Senna.
Now in lap 2 of 35. Long way to go, folks.
The Pont de la Concorde.
But he's not done yet as they make their way around the pont. And
The Epingle Hairpin. The Virage de Casino.
back in the grid without setting a lap time, which is really interesting.
The Wall of Champions.
Way down to the Wall of Champions now, and the Renault bombing down round the...
This is the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, home of the Montreal and the Canadian Grand Prix.
And his pedal to the metal, go, 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 go!
Mark Clay would take victory
Famous wins the Canadian Grand Prix. And
after a very convincing start by Shanaka Clay. Jarno Opmeer, the favourite, who obviously won the championship that year, came a cropper after colliding with Arsene Cardinal in his Alfa Romeo. It was an absolute phenomenal race. No end of entertainment. This Sunday night at 8 p.m, we will commence our trip to Canada for this season's Canadian Grand Prix here at ORL, and we're looking forward to bringing it to you. Be sure to be with us, ready for the off. Yes, guys, that is the Canadian Grand Prix promo, of course, that we've got coming up very, very soon indeed. And as you can see on your screens as well, we've got live images from, well, not live, but obviously replay images from that last race at Azerbaijan. We're now in the midst of qualifying, or in the midst of the race, should I say. I'm not sure quite what's happening there. That's the hotkey. Sorry, folks. Do apologise, but we are joining them in the midst of qualifying. And Nicholas Matteo there on top billing there with a 137.943. Tvetskov there in P2. VSR Kevin, of course, in P3 at this moment in time. Ben Szabo going quickest there with a 137.585. Unbelievable scenes there, of course, from Ben Szabo. Obviously looking for a good start to proceedings here, of course. I mean, naturally, the standings at this moment, this moment in the race anyway, of course, Jarno Opmeer currently leading the championship on 217 points after the Monaco Grand Prix. Josh Idawu still in second place. Of course, we haven't seen Josh Idawu in a little bit, to be honest with you. He has sort of fallen under the radar a little bit. I'm sure we'll see him back very soon, but it's given the opportunity for Danny Moreno to actually make his way through proceedings here, make his way through the field. And certainly it's great to see Danny Moreno hitting the hot numbers as of late. Of course, we've seen him in the Pro Series. He's looking absolutely brilliant. And always great to be seeing new drivers picking things up here in ORL and starting to hammer home some numbers. Certainly him and Jarno Opmeer have had their fair share of battles together. And we've seen many of them this season, of course. And the challenges that Danny Moreno has laid down upon Jarno Opmeer have been absolutely scintillating. We have been, well, bared witness to some incredible action this season, of course, and Danny Moreno has done extremely well to get the wins that he's had under his belt, and of course Jarno Opmeer doing the very same. But as things stand, Jarno Opmeer untouchable at the top right now, 217 against the 88 of Idawu. Moreno 2 points back on 86 points. Matthias Kologon 61 points. Paradzik on 58 points, of course, that being Tomek Paradzis, I suppose. Matteo there on 48 points, of course, currently P3 in qualifying, as you can see there. Alvaro Caratano have yet to see, obviously, since earlier on in the season. Of course, he is part of the F1 Esports Pro Series. We won't be seeing much of him, of course, because he's obviously got obligations to his team. Ben Szabo, of course, in P8, sorry, with 40 points. Freddie Rasmussen, of course, who appeared at the likes of the Bahrain Grand Prix, didn't have it all his own way, but we got the feeling there might have been a little bit of sandbagging going off in the Red Bull camp, of course. And Ruben Vallejo down in P10, 37 points to his name, to the Williams man, who's currently in the midst of that P20 position, or those 1 to 20 positions. Baldwin then back in P11 on 31 points. Nicholas Longe, 27. Nakarunen, 20 points. Tim Palm, 20 points. Simon Vigang, 20 points. And Fabrizio Donoso, 19 points. Quite a lot of drivers amassing between the 20 and the 19 point factor. 4 drivers making up that particular cluster. Of course, most of them, all of them taking part in the Pro Series this year, apart from Tim Palm, who's currently joining them there on that 20 points position, or certainly that 20 points certainly in the field. But looking further down, of course, you got Bernardo Perez in P17. 11 points amassed for him this season and for the Racing Point team. Roy Arnouts as well down in P18 with 4 points. Bianca Lila, of course, in P19, driving for Ferrari this season in the Pro Series. Driving the AlphaTauri here in ORL here today. Alvaro Aznar back in P20, 1 point to his name. Again, driving for the Racing Point team. I hope you're all having a good evening out here today. Do apologise, obviously, for the little issues with the coverage at the very start. Don't know what happened to my microphone there. Obviously a great blunder on my part. Do apologise, guys. The team standings, though, are as follows. Alfa Romeo at the top end, 262, and they're spearheading the division right now. Mercedes in P2, 193 to their name. Haas in P3 with 108. McLaren in P4 with 89 points. Williams P5, 71 points. AlphaTauri in 6th place with 55 points. Red Bull in P7, 54 points. Renault, 46 points in P8. Racing Point P9 with 12 points. And Ferrari still yet to score. P10 for the Ferrari team. Absolutely unbelievable scenes there to see them at the bottom. Still unable to grasp the points prior to this race. So we're looking forward to seeing if there's an opportunity for them to strike gold here. And I'm sure they will be grasping it with both hands. We now see Getone coming across line. P4 for the man in the Haas there. A 137.992 for the man in the Haas. And I'm sure he'll be happy with that. Making his return to ORL in recent weeks. And looked very strong indeed at Monaco. And I'm sure we'll be looking forward to seeing what he can do here at the street circuit of Baku. Certainly, obviously, a very testing circuit here at the Azerbaijan circuit. Obviously, race length is the race length itself, when they have Formula 1 there, it's 190 miles plus 51 laps. They usually do it across. Of course, we're only tackling a small fraction of that today. But the circuit length they're going to be taking is 3.7 miles. And that, of course, equates to just over 6 kilometers, of course. And no surprises, the most wins for a constructor have been for the Mercedes camp. 2 wins to them this season. And would you believe it? No repeat winners in terms of drivers at Baku. So I got to say, a great opportunity certainly for these guys. Maybe get a 2 wins in a row. Maybe break that record themselves here at ORL, as we can now see. Certainly Napadovsky go in purple in Sector 2. Sector 1, sorry, as he makes his way into Sector 2 now, as he rounds his way around this next right-hander. Indeed, the Ferrari coming up towards the castle section. And the prancing horses indeed need a little bit of luck. No points scored this season for Ferrari. There is certainly a very, very big impetus in that camp right now to try and get some points on the board. As we now see Napadovsky rounding the very quick left-handers. Very soon he's going to have to tackle the very tricky and lethal turn 15, which you can take and hit the wall, indeed, which he does so. Not a lot of damage sustained there. I didn't see an end plate fly off as he now makes his way around the final hard left-hander. Coming out onto the stretch now. This will be heading down Sector 3 before he reaches the home straight. And indeed, as he does so, weaves through this section of corners. He's very fast bends here in Sector 3 at Baku as he comes under the Rolex banner, coming up towards the line. The stands on the left and right-hand side. Sergei Napadovsky, what's he going to score here for the Ferrari team as he comes up across the line? It's P1 with a 137.577. A great time indeed for Napadovsky, which is trumped by Ruben Vallejo. There with a 137.566. The Williams driver tackling it indeed here today. A phenomenal effort there by Ruben Vallejo to take that P1 spot in a Williams livery that has really been trying to get itself back into the competitive model that it has been over so many years. And Ruben Vallejo doing just that as Falcon Roy stabs in the dark. A 137.530 there in the Red Bull car. Or indeed, it's 538. I do apologise there. The Red Bull tackling top spot. And Danny Moreno with a 136. 136 for Danny Moreno. A 136.948. Phenomenal scenes here as the man, the Spaniard, tackles P1 yet again. And I gotta say, after seeing this, it's no surprise that he's in the Pro Series. The only man in this classification to pitch that P1 spot within the 136s. A great effort from Danny Moreno in the Silver Arrows here today. Of course, usually he'd be donning the orange livery of that McLaren team that we're so familiar with throughout the season. As we now look further down, of course, Ben Szabo in P5. He is obviously driving for AlphaTauri. He's in the 137.585s for Ben Szabo. Looking further down, Nicholas Mateo, of course, Jarno's teammate, down in P7, a 137.943. So he's all the way down in P7, but still yet to see anything from Simon Vigang, VSR Wills, and Mr. Anker and Falcon Nardi. And of course, Danny Moreno will surely be keeping an eye on the classifications just to make sure that no one gets close to that 136 time. But that's an absolutely great effort there from Danny Moreno. Certainly the Spaniard will be delighted with that. And certainly going into the Pro Series that we saw him in this week. And it's just no surprise he's there. I know I said it before, but just hammering home the fact of the quality that we have on show here at ORL, it's absolutely unbelievable. Danny Moreno on P1, Falcon Roy P2. Ben Szabo and Svetskov are out on hot laps. Indeed, 1 second is as well. Leonard also out as well, looking to improve on that 138 that he sent earlier on. And Falcon Roy, who has actually invalidated that lap time, I don't think it's going to worry him too much. He's currently on the front row of the grid, at least for now. Simon Vigang as well, coming up towards what will be that tricky left. And indeed, don't want to take too much of that curve, as it can send you for a ride if you're not careful. Simon Vigang, of course, driving for Haas in this year's Pro Series, rounding the final main left-handed corner. corner. Ran a little bit wide there. That might have cost him, but he went fastest sector 2. So he's got every chance here to really plummet the lap times here, heading into the final sector. And indeed, as he comes up towards the straight, Tvetskov giving him a handy tow, of course. Whether we have slipstream, I don't think we have slipstream here at ORL this season. So certainly as we don't see Simon make use of it here, bombing down the straight, coming up towards the line. The Haas goes P3 with a 1:37.538 and levels the time set by Falcon Roy. Absolute scenes after going purple in sector 3. Great time there from Simon Vigang. Second row of the grid. Obviously, he's done extremely well to get to where he has been. Looking forward to obviously an improved run in the Haas car this season in the Pro Series. Of course, it hasn't gone all his way this season, but nevertheless, Simon Vigang looking ever so potent now. P3, second row of the grid, joining Ruben Vallejo there on that second row of the grid, in fact. VSR Wheels obviously still yet to set a time. Falcon Nardi still in the pit lane, still yet to set one. But nonetheless, it looks like Simon Vigang is going to be at least content for the time being after setting his first time of the day with just over 3 minutes left to go. Getting into P3 on a first effort, that is absolutely mesmeric there by Simon Vigang. Danny Moreno still up in P1 though, untouched there with a 136.948. As Zones tackles the top end with a 137.154. The Racing Point tackling the top end, getting himself on the front row of the grid. And that relegates Falcon Roy down in on the second row with Simon Vigang. Zones very happy with that lap. He retires from the session, getting very close to that 1:36 mark set by Danny Moreno. But that time looks absolutely untouchable. A phenomenal effort there by the Spaniard Danny Moreno. He's going to be well chuffed with that result. And certainly I can imagine it going a long way to him claiming an undeniable opportunity for a victory here today. Certainly without Jana Watmir here, it opens up the opportunity certainly for Danny Moreno. Of course, we're aware of his pace and certainly watched that very phenomenal outing he had at China where he first came to ORL, tackling Jana Watmir from the very off. Simon Vigang very untidily coming into the pit lane there. Not ideal at all. Could have very well taken his wing off as he comes up towards his box. We've got a couple more cars leaving the pit bay. Of course, this is about the time when you start seeing the drivers exit all out onto their final laps. This is when we're going to start seeing a cluster of times hit the decks here, folks. And of course, you can see that 1 second and Steve are the ones to leave, as well as Ben Szabo and Tvetskov as well in the Renault. So both Renaults are now out on outlaps, and of course Steve is out and about as well. His teammate Ben Szabo is out as well in the AlphaTauri. And speaking of the man, here he is, Ben Szabo, coming around towards the next right-hander, and indeed the AlphaTauri in the navy blue livery, looking to make a difference here in proceedings. Of course, a former champion, and he knows all about winning titles at ORL. He's done it before. Do not write this man off. I keep saying it every race, folks. He's one to keep an eye on. He's always in the top 10s, tackling at least to try and get a podium, and he deserves it. He works so hard as Photon, as he's known in the gaming world, but he's also known as Ben Szabo, of course, as we now see him rounding the next right-hander into the next left. And he's qualified for the Pro Draft on many occasions as Ben Szabo, and always looked like a very phenomenal figure in the world of esports as he now rounds the next left-hander, coming down towards what would be that very tricky left-hander. We're just riding on board now with Ruben Vallejo as he comes round the next left-hander as well. Ruben Vallejo signed by BDG, of course. And Danny Moreno in hot pursuit as well, who's currently on pole. So obviously Danny just making safe that lap time that he set earlier on today. Wants to make sure he gets P1 at the very end of qualifying. Of course, we've only got 1 second left. Squeaky bum time here, folks. Here at, of course, the Baku Street circuit of Azerbaijan. And we're looking forward to seeing what these guys can post as we now see Ben Szabo coming up towards the line to commence his fast lap. And indeed, you'll want to send those soft tyres for a very hefty run around this street circuit. As we now see Steve, his teammate as well, doing the same thing, coming up towards turn 1. His teammate dead ahead of him, Ben Szabo. And as these two make their way around now, of course, one of them's got to be hoping to get into the top 10. Steve as well, no slouch on his day. And certainly one to watch. He was in the Ferrari last season. He's in the AlphaTauri this season. So 2 different Italian cars for that of Steve. As we now see Nicholas Matteo now about to start his fast lap as well. As you can see there, the Alpha driver, of course, has been teammating Jana Watmir all season so far. He's now back here at Baku looking to this time lead the Alpha team himself. And obviously looking to try and get himself up to the top end. Of course, his teammate today, VSR Kevin, down in P13 with a 138.036. As most of the drivers now out on hot laps. We now see 1 second. Don't get confused. It's not 1 second here. It certainly is 1 second. Not talking about Delta times. I'm on about this, man. PRS 1 second in the Renault car, the yellow livery of the Renault team. As he makes his way down towards the winding final sector. And as he makes his way down towards the stretch, he's going to be hoping for an improvement. I think he has, in fact, invalidated the lap time. So I don't think he's going to actually score here 1 second. He actually might have done himself in here, as he does indeed come up towards the line. This, of course, will complete his day of qualifying. And indeed, he'll stay in P12 as well at 1:37.993 is the time for 1 second. So certainly okay for 1 second. We haven't seen anything of him this season. So his debut here in ORL Tier 1 will surely be... You'll be happy with that considering the strength of the grid, as we now see Ben Zabo coming up towards the line. And indeed being joined by his teammate Steve, who was trying to use the slipstream. Ben Zabo staying in P7, no change there. Steve staying in P14, so no changes for that man either. The two AlphaTauris now subject to the rest of the cars coming across the grid. As Svetskov makes his way up to P3. A phenomenal time there, 1:37.419. Gets himself further up the grid. Second row there for the Renault. As Danny Moreno comes across the line and sets on 1:36.931. And indeed, he'll stay in P1. Falconardi, a late to the death there, 1:36.992. There for the Pink Panther. A phenomenal lap time from him as well. Simon Vigang still out and about. Napadovsky comes across the line in P3 for Ferrari. What a result that'll be if they can hold on to it. As Nicholas Matteo comes up across the line, P11. That will remain for Nicholas Matteo. As we now see the rest cross the line, Simon Vigang about to join his colleagues now as he comes across P7. Can only be amassed there by Simon Vigang and his Haas car. But nonetheless, he'll be up there for dancing. He's in the top 10, so that'll certainly go a long way. Anything can happen here at Baku, of course. The walls are so very close, and you've got to watch yourself, certainly around this circuit. It takes no prisoners. There's Baku, like many street circuits we've seen over the course of this season. As you can now see Simon Vigang just nursing the car just around the track. P7 for the man in the Haas. Danny Moreno is your P1 sitter. 1:36.931. A great lap time indeed. Falconardi there in P2. 1:36.992 there for the Racing Point team. Napadovsky sending Ferrari back into P3 zones. Svetskov, Roy, Vigang, Vallejo, Ben Zabo, Leonard, Matteo, Getone, 1 second, and Kevin. And of course, we've got a few others down the way as well. That makes up your grid, folks, for the start of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But of course, before we go, folks, a little word from our sponsors. Welcome back, folks. Yes, indeed, we are back here on the grid here for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And as you can see, Danny Moreno currently lining up on top step as we wait for the lights to go red, folks. Keep it with us. It's going to be a corker. Waiting for them all to start up. Here we go. First light, second light, third light, fourth light, the fifth light! And it's pedal to the metal. Go, 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 go. And indeed, Danny Moreno gets a phenomenal start there. The Spaniard in behind, of course. Falconardi there in P2. Napadovsky going toe-to-toe with Zones. Heading down the stretch now towards the next left-hander. But it's Danny Moreno. Clear by a long shot. Leading the contingent of cars. We've got a lot of ghosting going on behind the scenes. But indeed, it is going to be Danny Moreno leading the fray. Here with Falconardi in P2. Napadovsky in P3. Zones in P4. Of course, the two Racing Points up in the top end. Simon Vigang jumping up a series of places, looking very strong in the Haas car as they come around the next right-hander. But Danny Moreno already clear by a mountainous gap there, and indeed he will remain that way on his tyres as well, the soft tyres, which he can easily burst around this Baku Street circuit. In behind him, Falconardi currently 1.2 seconds behind the Spaniard. Napadovsky in P3, Zones in P4, Simon Vigang P5, Falcon Roy in P6. Then I make their way through the castle section. Coming round now is Simon Vigang posting on the back of Zones indeed, who's in P4. The two Racing Points in P2 and 4 from the start. start. A phenomenal showing indeed, is that a McLaren has just gone wide there. And indeed, it looks like Lucas UK has come a cropper there at the very tail end of the field. And indeed, he's on his own as he makes his way down towards that real tricky and dangerous turn 15. A phenomenal start by Danny Moreno, putting nothing into question as they come down towards the final stiff left-hander, the 90-degree left-hander. And indeed, Danny Moreno leading by 1.6 seconds. He is absolutely trailblazing here at the start as Lapidovsky is now sizing up Falconati coming down the stretch, and the Ferrari has tickled the top end and snatched it off Falconati. And as you can see, there must have been damage accrued because Falconati diving into the pit lane. So the Racing Point already sustaining early damage, and that advantage he held from the start is already in jeopardy. A phenomenal start here, but as we now see him getting a change of front wing, and indeed the damage is clear on that front left end plate. The garage hard at work as Lucas UK has already retired from the race. Danny Moreno, though, bombing down into the next left-hander. We are now in lap 2 already of 26, folks. It's amazing how quick that the laps seem to run away with us here at ORL. And indeed, as you can see, Lapidovsky in P2, Zones in P3. Currently, these two clear at this moment in time from the rest of the field, as indeed Danny Moreno is definitely clear. He has bombarded himself ahead, just experiencing a little issue there with our HUD, folks. They now come down towards the next left-hander, and indeed Falconati trying to hold on at this moment in time, certainly to the position that he's in. Looking further down, Lapidovsky in P2. Sorry, folks, do apologise. The HUD has certainly confused me a little bit there. Zones, of course, still there, though, in P3. And battling with Lapidovsky. Currently, the gap is just under 0.8 of a second. Simon Vigang in P4. Falcon Roy in P5. Svetskov in P6. Leonard further down. Ruben Vallejo as well joining him. And there's a cluster of cars in that midfield, certainly trying to do battle. Albeit, though, 4 of them on the main soft tyres of Svetskov, Leonard, Vallejo and Ben Szabo, who are now clearing from Get Owned, who's on the mediums, but he's clearing from Nicholas Matteo, who of course is donning the hard tyres like many of his colleagues, down to VSR Wills in P15. So still plenty going on amongst the circuit. Zones, the closest gap to Lapidovsky with just over 7 tenths, just under 8 tenths in fact of a second behind Lapidovsky. Danny Moreno ahead already by 2.2 seconds. This man is relentless, and I gotta say, it's no wonder that we have seen non-stop battling between him and Jarno Watmir this season. It's been absolutely unbelievable. And again, here at Baku, we're witnessing an extraordinary visit here by the Spaniard, as we can now see the Mercedes bombing its way down towards the next left-hander, that of course being that hellacious turn 3 into what will be turn 4. As you can now see, Leonard is in the pit lane as well. The McLaren team have had a real terrible start here, with one car already out the race. Steve is out as well, so AlphaTauri down to one car as well, that being Ben Szabo, who is in P8, but of course Steve out of the race. So one-legged are AlphaTauri, as we can now see Lapidovsky making his way down towards the next right-hander, and indeed, as he does so, heading down towards what will be that notorious turn 7 into the castle section, which is turns 8, 9, 10, 11, and of course 12, which is the final left-hander that you can see Lapidovsky taking now. And already 2.7 seconds the gap. Danny Moreno on a stormer here. A phenomenal start there from the Spaniard in the Mercedes. Lapidovsky in P2, clear by 7 tenths of a second, or 7.5 tenths of a second, to SHZ Zones, who's in P3 for Racing Point. Simon Vigang all over the back end of that Racing Point, literally being separated by around 8.5 tenths as well. Falcon Roy joining the party as well in the Red Bull. Tvetskov in P6 for Renault, and he's joined by Ruben Vallejo, who is around a second back. Ruben Vallejo has been very good and strong recently this season. We've seen a lot of great hellacious performances from the Williams man, and of course, not only him, but his teammate who also joined BDG, that Nicholas Matteo. Not his teammate here in ORL, but of course his teammate in terms of BDG. Both of them signed at the same time, as Tvetskov makes his way up the field after Zones is now pitting. Now that's very early from the from the Racing Point man. Certainly not ideal to be pitting early here at Baku, and indeed it is a wing change, and Zones in fact has retired from the session. So we got 3 retirees already at the start here. One-legged again, our Racing Point, with Falconati all the way down in P14, who of course himself only just pitting at the very start as well. So down into the bottom 10. We've only got 16 cars remaining here at Baku, folks. That being said, 15 cars, as we now see Danny Moreno coming around this next left and right. Now, he could pretty much, I suppose, cruise here and conserve his tyres. It's a great opportunity for Danny Moreno just to sort of conserve his fuel, conserve his tyres, his ERS as well. He is 2.2 seconds clear of Napadovsky, and we're in lap 4, so it's a phenomenal race being lined up here for Danny Moreno. Huge opportunity, as we can now see 1 second coming down towards the next right-hander. Indeed, that being of turn 7. He's chasing Nicholas Mateo at the moment, who's in P9. 0.8 of a second the gap as they come up the castle section, around the next right, into the next left, which of course is turn 12, heading down towards turn 13. And indeed, Nicholas Mateo there in P9, looking to score some more points for Alfa Romeo, who have had a very good season because they are currently P1 in the Constructors. Of course, Jana Watmir has been the man to thank for that as well. And as we can now see, Simon Vigang chasing on the back end of Falcon Roy. The DRS will become active here for Simon Vigang as they come down towards the straight. And indeed, Simon is going to be eyeing him up for a tasty move here as Falcon Roy in all kinds of jeopardy. Here comes Simon Vigang in the Haas car, the American Haas team, looking to score points big here today as they come down towards Baku, down towards turn 1. A hellacious move there by Simon Vigang, smooth as you like. And he moves up to P3. A great show, oh my word, cruising into the wall, literally lost traction coming round the left-hander, cemented into the barrier, and that will not help his chances here today. Certainly must be some fragment of damage caused to the front end of that Haas car. Simon Vigang on what looked to be a very easy cruising manoeuvre to overtake Falcon Roy for that P3 position, has now been relegated to P6. Not ideal at all for the Haas man. And once again, he's going to have to try and fight his way through the field and try and fight past the likes of Ruben Vallejo, who is in P5 right now and has actually benefited extremely well from that incident involving Simon Vigang. Unbelievable scenes here, as indeed Leonard retires from the session. So we're down to 14 cars in this race here, folks. So, of course, with Leonard retiring, that is not ideal, as we can now see Napadovsky heading up through the castle section. The Ferrari boys look to have a great opportunity to score some points here today. Of course, Mr. Anker in P11 as well, as Napadovsky comes around the next left-hander. And indeed, he'll be making his way around these series of lefts before he reaches this very tricky, I say tricky, turn 15, in which he does so magnificently, just brushes the wall slightly on the concrete side, coming down towards turn 16. And indeed, he's been chased indeed by what seems to be Falcon Roy, who is trying to really tail on the back, but he's literally dropped back by near enough a second already. 2.9 seconds the gap between Napadovsky and Falcon Roy. Tvetskov, if anything, is making ground, just losing a bit of shape down the straight there is the Renault as they come up towards turn 1. Falcon Roy now about to, what looks to be, he's not diving into the pit lane, is he? Yes, he is. And in fact, he's being joined by Tvetskov. So whether this is an early tyre change choice, that is interesting. So the tyres not sustaining themselves through the early laps here at Baku, and already we're seeing the strategies being moulded into contention by that of Ruben Vallejo as well. And not forgetting Simon Vigang, who has, of course, made an early pit stop as well, jumping on the hard straight away. So that is the answer. Jump on the hards and go to the end. That's what they're saying. As we can now see Napadovsky round to the next left. He's managed to close the gap on Danny Moreno by around 0.7 of a second. So great work by Napadovsky, but of course you can imagine that Danny Moreno is going to be literally saving his ERS and of course his fuel and his tyres going around this circuit at this moment in time. He's got a clear buffer of 2 seconds at this moment in time. And he can take advantage of this moment, indeed, to give himself a better chance towards the end of the race. As you can now see him going up through the castle section and being joined by Napadovsky, who's now making his way to follow him up through the swerving lefts and rights. And out of that section now, heading down towards the series of lefts. And indeed, the Prancing Horses looking to score their first points of the season. Mr. Anker as well in the top 10, P7. For Mr. Anker. He's currently 2 seconds behind, 1 second. That's not to get confused, folks. That's PRS 1 second, who's in P6. And you could see there Napadovsky just round in the final corner indeed. Looking a little bit sluggish, though, going around that left-handed bend. Just look at the spectacular architecture that is, of course, Baku. And in behind, of course, you can see Ben Szabo into the podium positions as well. And Nicholas Mateo being chased by PRS 1 second right now. And in fact, he is in DRS territory is 1 second as they come down towards the straight now. And he'll have his chance indeed with Nicholas Mateo just dead ahead now as they come up towards past the paddock. And indeed the Renault still sizing up Nicholas Mateo. But I think that Alpha has far too much straight line speed as they come down towards turn 1. And indeed it's not going to happen here for him. He's going to have to wait behind at least once more. Another DRS zone will become available as they make their way down towards turn 2. Nicholas Mateo still holding on to that second spot. PRS 1 second in P3. As you can see, Danny Moreno and Napadovsky both opt in for a pit stop here onto the hard tyres. The soft to hard tyre strategy certainly seems to be the option here for a lot of these drivers, as we now see Get Owned, who of course has not yet pitted, rounding this next right-hander in P1, of course, being chased by Nicholas Matteo. Danny Moreno coming out on top of VSR Kevin already out of the pit stop. So a great return here by Danny Moreno out of nowhere. VSR Kevin unable to stop the phenomenal Spaniard from, well, moving up a spot. I mean, of course, it would be fruitless, but of course, don't forget, Kevin is only on hard tyres himself. He's only amassed 6 laps on him. Those hards will still be very fresh indeed as they come around the next right-hander, coming up towards the castle section now. Danny Moreno still up in P5 and chasing Mr. Anchor. Currently the gap being 1.4 seconds as they round the next left-hander. The Black Arrow, the Mercedes, cruising here, punching, looking to get another win to add to his locker here this season, of course. Let's not forget his amazing victory at the Dutch Grand Prix, where, of course, he beat Jarno Watmir on his home turf. Of course, Jarno Watmir rude that day. And, of course, let's not forget Danny Moreno won our last race as well at Monaco in spectacular fashion. Of course, lots of controversy around that race, indeed. Another street circuit as well. Certainly, a lot was questioned in that race, I can imagine. I know plenty of people watching that stream, and there was quite a divide across the live chat as to what was going on in that race, but nevertheless, it's entertainment, and we love it, folks, as Napadovsky comes down the stretch now towards turn 1. Lap 8 of 26 at this moment in time. Get Owned still in the lead, but for how long? Danny Moreno, technically your net leader on fresh hard tyres, currently in P5, looking racy, and the only reason Mr. Anchor, I think, is pulling away is because those hard tyres on Mr. Anchor's car are going to be fully warmed up, because it takes around between 5 and 8 laps, I would say, to warm the hard tyres up and get them pretty race ready, as Nicholas Matteo is now trying to fend off the advances from PRS 1 second, who is currently in P3 at this moment in time, coming up towards the next left-hander. And indeed, Nicholas Matteo looking to carry on from what his teammate Jarno Watmir has been doing and get his first win of the season. Nicholas Matteo certainly has been looking for that podium, that elusive podium that he certainly has been challenging for. There's certainly nothing wrong with his pace, but he certainly does seem susceptible to penalties indeed as they round up through the castle section. And Nicholas Matteo currently in P2. 3.5 seconds, or 3.3 seconds now. The gap between him and Get Owned. And 1 second in behind him in P3 as well. Within that second gap. So we will have DRS if he can maintain this sort of pace. Mr. Anchor in hot pursuit as well. 1.3 seconds the gap between the Ferrari and the Renault as they round the next tricky left-hander. Danny Moreno, of course, is coming to the picture as well. So this could be a very quick and easy return to P1 here for Danny Moreno. If he can just hold on to where he is, he knows exactly what's going on ahead of him. The cars ahead of him still yet to pit, of course. Get Owned, of course, on medium tyres. He will be pitting before Nicholas Matteo, 1 second, and Mr. Anchor. We are in lap 8 of 26, folks. As they come down the stretch now, Get Owned still in front. 3.5 seconds the advantage against Nicholas Matteo, who's in P3. 1 second in P3, sorry, Nicholas Matteo P2, Mr. Anchor in P4, Danny Moreno P5, just half a second separating him and Mr. Anchor. 1 second in P3, in behind Nicholas Matteo, just see ahead of him there, 7/10 of a second. That gap has been closing. Danny Moreno, of course, surging up on Mr. Anchor as well, and he might get a chance here bombing down this stretch, and indeed, as he do so, coming down towards this next left-hander, indeed, Danny Moreno holds on, or does he? As he makes his way into P4, I can just see there further up the timing screens. But indeed, Simon Vigang down in P12. We're riding on board with this man who has not had his day here today. Certainly after that early pit stop has left him down in P12. But what it does give him is an advantage to try and whittle his way up the grid order. Danny Moreno still up in P4 though after tackling Mr. Anchor, and now trying to close the gap on him between him and 1 second, who is in P3. 8 laps amassed on his hard tyres. Danny Moreno only on 1 lap old hards as they come up through the castle section. Kevin in P6, being joined by Napadovsky, who is also only just pitted onto fresh hards, joining that of the Alfa Romeo, obviously usually donned by Jarno Watmir, today donned by VSR Kevin as they come down towards the next left-hander. The Alfa Romeo and the Ferrari, the Master versus the Apprentice as they come down towards the next left-hander. Who is going to come out on top? I can think it's only one constructor as they come down towards the next left-hander once again. Turn 10-16 of the realm as they come into Sector 3 proper now. And indeed, VSR Kevin holding on for all he's worth, but for how long? CRG Nabadovsky in P7, looking to fight back, take that P6 position that he so desperately wants to try and keep close on Danny Moreno as they come up towards what will be the start-finish line. VSR Kevin trying to break out of the slipstream of that of the Ferrari as Nabadovsky moves up alongside with the DRS open. The prancing horse prancing on the back here. Here comes Falcon Roy for a late maneuver, just cruising up his Roy Arnault. A little bit of ankle tapping, but still Nabadovsky gets clear. P6 for the Ferrari man. The Red Bull up into P7. Kevin, the unfortunate loser in that occasion, down to P8. A double overtake there in one hot straight. And indeed, it's going to be Nabadovsky leading them round. Falcon Roy in hot pursuit. Currently just over a tenth of a second. Now 2.5 tenths in behind that of the prancing horse as they come round the next right-hander. Very soon they'll be making their way down towards the next left. The Ferrari still owning his skills here in P6. The two Ferraris, in fact, in the top 10 with Mr. Anchor in P5. So great points on offer for Ferrari if they can keep this buzz going as they come up towards the next right-hander. Ghetto still in front, though, by 3 seconds to Nicholas Matteo, who is still working hard to close the gap. And indeed, I think he is. He's down to 2.8 as we've now lost Tvetskov out of the session. I'm not sure whether that's a retirement or whether that indeed is just a ghosting, but you can see 1 second now trying to close onto Nicholas Matteo, and is indeed, if you pardon the pun, 1 second in behind that of the Alpha as they come down towards the final left-hander. And Danny Moreno also within a second of 1 second. So, pardon the pun, if you will, do folks. Obviously, a very tricky name to actually decipher, given the fact that we talk about Delta times a lot in Formula 1, as we can now see him round in the next series of corners. And in front of him, Nicholas Matteo looking in all kinds of danger here as they come down the stretch. The DRS will be useful here for 1 second as they come down towards turn 1. Danny Moreno in hot pursuit of these two as well. We're in lap 11 of 26, folks. Double digits here amassed here at Baku as they come down towards the next left-hander. 1 second is under a second. He is literally 4 tenths in behind Nicholas Matteo. In behind him, Danny Moreno, half a second separates him. So there's great chance here from Danny if he can get on the slipstream of PRS 1 second and make an overtake of Nicholas Matteo at the same time. We saw it happen earlier on between Napadovsky, Falcon Roy and VSR Kevin, of course. And I believe it can still happen here as they round the next left-hander, heading down towards what will be the next right. And it's still in front. Nicholas Matteo leading around 1 second and Danny Moreno. Moreno is not going to be going down fighting here at all. I'm sure that with his quality, he can try and improve his position as Tvetskov is down in P14 after spinning out of turn 1, literally overshooting that turn 1 section where you can get that huge runoff. Of course, it's not a place to be because, as you can imagine, it obviously leaves you a very difficult challenge of trying to get back on track with potential traffic coming by you. As you can now see, Nicholas Matteo still on P2 after coming out of the castle section. 1 second in behind him. Danny Moreno in P4. Naturally, probably eyeing up 1 second for a move here on the home stretch as they come down towards turn 16. That notorious turn 16 where damage is so easily sustained. You can see Danny Moreno just behind that of 1 second. And of course, I think he's waiting patiently here, the Mercedes, but he might get his chance with the DRS open. Indeed, he's under no circumstances of pressure here as Ghetto still yet to pit, leads the way here at this Baku GP as they come down the stretch now towards the start-finish line. Danny Moreno on 3-lap-old hard tyres, bombing down the stretch with the architecture on all around him here at Baku. The fans watching on in expectation, coming down towards what will be turn 1 as Ghetto has moved into the pit lane. So here you are your leaders, Nicholas Matteo, 1 second, and Danny Moreno as they come up towards what will be turn 2. And indeed, Matteo still leading them round. 1 second is within a second. He is 8.5 tenths of a second in behind that of Nicholas Matteo. Danny Moreno in P3, currently trying to break into that second gap. Ghetto trying to come out onto the grid as VSR Kevin does exactly what Tvetskov has done and goes into that runoff area and very, very cleverly and very sensibly lets VSR Wills, of course, his VSR teammate, go ahead of him into P12. Not an ideal thing to do, certainly for Kevin, of course, donning the seat of Jana Watmir. And I'm sure Jana Watmir will not appreciate seeing that, I'm sure, to his car that he usually dons on a Sunday. And of course, if you watch F1 Esports as well, you'll see him driving that very same car every esports event as well. As we can now see Danny Moreno rising up through the castle section. PRS 1 second in P2. Nicholas Matteo in P1. These three giving us a real great battle here, of course. Matteo trying to close the gap, but Danny Moreno looks to be the man in charge here in P3. Of course, he's only stopped once, and that's all he needs to stop on. He is on on 4-lap-old hards that are indeed 7 laps better off than those ahead of him. And 1 second now in the big danger zone. And certainly he's going to be looking in his wing mirrors, seeing that menacing black livery of the Mercedes as they make their way into Sector 3. Indeed, just over 0.3 of a second separating these two. The DRS once again has become open. And 1 second is a sitting duck. Here comes Danny, the Spaniard, on the inside, tackling that of the Renault of 1 second as they come down the stretch towards turn 1. And it's easy pickings for Danny Moreno. Makes his way up to P2. The silver arrows, the black arrow, making its way up a spot and now chases Nicholas Matteo for the lead of this Grand Prix. An absolutely phenomenal move by Danny Moreno, yet again showing off his dominance here amongst this great grid as Get-Owned moves into P9 ahead of Ben Zabo. Nicholas Matteo, though, must as well be looking into his rearview mirror, seeing Danny Moreno, the ever-prominent man himself, in P2, donning that black arrow, the silver arrow, the Mercedes in P2, 1 second in P3. Mr. Anker and Nabadovsky in tandem, the two Ferraris in the top 10, gunning for points here today, and a very good chance for them indeed. We, of course, down to 14 cars. Ben Zabo currently in P10 on 5-lap-old hard, still battling it out with Get-Owned, who, of course, was leading the Grand Prix earlier on, subject to his pit stop, which has now dropped him down to P9. He is still in the top 10 as VSR Kevin, Jana Watmier's Alfa Romeo seat, has retired out of the race, and that leaves literally only Nicholas Matteo to carry the team here in the top 10. So, of course, Nicholas has got it all to do now. And, of course, he's still yet to pit. And he's got Danny Moreno all over him here. Half a second, the gap between those two as Falcon Roy rounds the quick left-hander. He's chasing Nabadovsky here now. And, of course, Nabadovsky has pitted on the same sort of tyres as Falcon Roy. Both of them donning 5-6 laps on their compounds as they come down towards the final 90-degree left-hander, that being turn 16, as they come down the stretch now. It is still Nicholas Matteo leading the way. Danny Moreno now looking to take the lead of the race here. Can he snatch it off the youngster Nicholas Matteo coming down towards turn 1? The DRS here open up for the Spaniard as they make their way down towards the start-finish line. Here comes Danny Moreno. He's going to hold firm in behind that of Nicholas Matteo, and he does indeed. Just waiting, just being patient, waiting for his chance here as Nabadovsky joining his teammate round turn 1, being joined by Falcon Roy, also known as Roy Arnouts as well, making their way down towards the next corner, turn 2. Chasing that of Nabadovsky in behind. Ben Zabo chasing Simon Vigang as well. We got battles all across the grid here, folks. It's been absolutely unbelievable racing here so far. And, of course, lots of drama heightened up with the fact that we've had 5 DNFs in this race already. It's absolutely unbelievable. Please, of course, leave your comments in the chat as well, folks. I'll be reading your comments here on this replay stream of the Baku Street Circuit, the Azerbaijan GP. And you can see that Nicholas Matteo still leading the way. 0.4 of a second, the gap between him and Danny Moreno. PRS 1 second in P3. Mr. Anker there in P4. Nabadovsky in P5. And as we can now see them making their way up through the castle section, you can see the black arrow of Danny Moreno making his way through the field, trying his best to keep hold on to this man, Nicholas Matteo, who is, of course, still yet to pit. But nevertheless, Danny Moreno, that's not going to worry him. He wants to do it on the circuit. As you can now see them making their way around the next left-hander. Simon Vigang, of course, coming out the castle section as well, making his way down through the latter stages of Sector 2. He has got Get-Owned as well in his rearview mirror, who's chasing Ben Zabo. Of course, Get-Owned on fresher tyres than that of Simon Vigang and Ben Zabo as they come around the tricky left-handed section, turn 16, heading down towards the final real tricky left-hander, the 90-degree left-hander, which you have seen so many incidents happen at, of course. You've got to get this one absolutely right. As you can now see, Get-Owned now 2.9 seconds away from Ben Zabo. And I think there must have been an incident there indeed, because he's slowing down Get-Owned, and that's not a very pleasant thing to see. Of course, we went for a battle as Mr. Anker and Nabadovsky, the two teammates, battling together, and Mr. Anker snatching P4 there. Not very teammately indeed, snatching it off Nabadovsky as they come round towards the stretch now. And indeed, Nabadovsky will not be happy with that. P5 for the man in the prancing horse. So no sense of team orders here at the Ferrari camp. And indeed, you can, I suppose, relate that fact to why they haven't scored many points this season as they now come up towards the next right-hander. Mr. Anker in P4, Nabadovsky P5. Looking further up, Danny Moreno has taken the lead of the race. He is now in P1, overtaken Nicholas Matteo, and is now 7.5 tenths clear of that of the Alfa Romeo. The two Ferraris still gunning at it, though, as they come around towards the next right-hander. As you can now see, Danny still leading the way. Coming up through the castle section, the Mercedes doing extremely well and holding on as best he can. The Black Arrow looking to really cruise to another victory here. We are now nearing up the final 10 laps of this hellacious Grand Prix. And in behind, Gets Owned, you can see there at the very back, who looked so promising earlier on, is now at the very back of the classifications. Tvetskov as well. I'm not sure what's going on there, but he is now binned it out of the race. That is another DNF to record here today, folks. Tvetskov is out of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We are down to 12 here at Baku. And as we can now see, Danny Moreno with a VSC making his way around this street circuit. And of course, he can now calm down now and try and just pace his car. You can see the collective of cars in behind. In fact, the delta times have narrowed right up. We got very close gaps right back to Falcon Roy Arnouts, who is now back into P6. So you've got a real tight string of cars there, folks. And already we're seeing some pits being attended to. Nicholas Mateo jumping in, no doubt, to put on some fresh soft tyres. And I'd imagine you try and go to the end on those. You can now see Napadovsky in P2 now, back into where he wanted to be. He can now chase Danny Moreno. We've still got yellow flags across the circuit. The VSC is still in motion, as we can now see Danny Moreno still leading the way. Falcon Roy P3, Ruben Vallejo P4. Ruben Vallejo being brought right back into this as well as they make their way down the stretch. And still Danny Moreno in front and leading the charge. Very soon we will be going green, folks, but got to say it's been a phenomenal race here by Danny Moreno and planned extremely well. Ideal to what that man in the Mercedes was looking for. Sorry, folks, just taking a quick drink there. And indeed, as we now see, VSR Wales rounding the next left-hander in the Williams car. And the yellow flags are still raining through this street circuit. And you can just see ahead of him there, Wales is Falcon Nardi. Just looking there, Danny Moreno in P1 in the Mercedes, coming around this tricky set of left-handers up towards what will be that turn 15. And very soon down to turn 16. Dan Napadovsky 3.7 seconds back. Falcon Roy in P3. Ruben Vallejo P4. And of course you got Simon Vigang then in behind those. Of course we've only got 10 laps remaining, folks. Like I said before, lots to happen here at Baku. And certainly only one thing has to happen before we can see an incident. It doesn't take a lot around the street circuits of Baku. Certainly street circuits in general have a habit of causing a lot of drama. Of course, it's never nice to see a driver crash, but of course it does perform quite a twist in the classifications as we now see Danny Moreno rounding turn 1. We are now within the final 9 laps of the race, folks. And indeed, Danny Moreno leading the charge here in the Mercedes car. In behind, Ben Szabo now at the mercy of Nicholas Mateo, who bombs down the inside there of the AlphaTauri. And the Alfa Romeo takes the P6 position off in there. Caught napping was Ben Szabo on fresh medium tyres. And or 9-lap-old hard tyres, sorry, as Nicholas Mateo on his fresh softs makes it into P6. A great move there indeed, and that gives him a great chance to try and whittle his way through this field. He's going to have to go for it, Nicholas Mateo, if he wants to try and get up to the top end. It's now or never for the youngster in the Alpha. Certainly wants to try and do Jarno Otmir and his team justice here, of course. Jarno away this weekend, as we've said before. Of course, his car was being donned by VSR Kevin, who was unfortunately out of the race. So it's all up to Nicholas now. He's the one that's going to have to put the points on the board for Alfa Romeo as they now make their way down the stretch. Get Owned, who is in P12 in Sector 1, now making his way down the tricky section between Turn 2 and Turn 3, where we have to meet this next stiff left-hander, Nicholas Mateo, we're riding on board with, is now already cut the gap down by 0.6 of a second to Simon Vigang, who is on 10-lap-old hards. Now you can imagine those hards are going to be nothing compared to the soft tyres that Nicholas Mateo has got, because he has got so much pace on that compound as they come up down towards the last stages of Sector 2. You can see there PRS1 second trying to close the gap on Ben Szabo on his fresh medium tyres as they make their way down towards turn 16. And indeed, Nicholas Mateo still in P6, currently 2.3 seconds by Simon Vigang as they make their way out of the last stages of Sector 3, soon to come across the start-finish line where they'll commence Sector 1. And indeed, in the distance, you can see the Haas car of Simon Vigang as they make their way past what will be the start-finish line. Lap 18 of 26, folks. We are in amongst it here, the final 8 laps of this Grand Prix. Danny Moreno still in front. Nicholas Mateo has set the fastest lap of the race so far with a 1:41.152 as he makes his way down the stretch now, heading round towards this next left-hander. And indeed, as they do so, Nicholas Mateo on those fresh softs. Falconardi goes quicker again, a 141.034 as they come round towards the next right-hander. Napadovsky holding off Falcon Roy, both of them on similar stretches of compound tyres. They come round towards the next left-hander. The Ferrari and the Red Bull. All battles do not die fast, as you can now see these two making their way down towards the next right-hander. Indeed, that being turn 7, and that's a very tricky one. You've got to try and literally hug the whole apex there, literally cutting across the curb, heading up the castle section now. The Ferrari of Napadovsky still in P2, holding off the approaches and the advances of Falcon Roy, who's in P3. The Red Bull with wings looking to tackle that of TRG Napadovsky. This is going to be a straight fist fight between these two, that's for sure. Certainly with the fact that they're both on similar compound of tyres. They come up towards the next left. Indeed, that tricky turn 15 down towards turn 16 now. And literally, Falcon Roy is going to throw everything at the wings here and try and close the gap on Napadovsky as they come down the stretch now. The start-finish straight. And indeed, it's still leading the way. Danny Moreno, who's managed to amass an incredible 5-second advantage on the whole grid order here as they made their way down the stretch. Napadovsky still in P2. Falcon Roy P3. In behind, Ruben Vallejo in P4 as they come down the stretch now towards turn 1. Napadovsky trying to move into a defensive position, but Falcon Roy, who's managed to make the most of the slipstream and of course the DRS to close the gap down within 0.3 of a second. And indeed, he's going to be really pushing and prodding on the back end of this prancing horse. As 1 second has overtaken indeed that of Ben Szabo. Nicholas Matteo, who has already roamed clear. 1 second now, joining the battle, moved himself up a position. Mr. Anker trying to do the same as they round turn 2. And as you can see, Ben Szabo in all sorts of trouble here in lap 19 of 26. The prancing horses not going down without a fight this season. They are looking for points, so this is the perfect opportunity for them here today to really get some. As you can now see, Get Owned moving up into P11 with VSR Wills in the pit lane. Lap 19 of 26, folks. The drama is just kicking off. PRS 1 second. Now 2.3 seconds behind Nicholas Matteo, but facing the onslaught of Ben Szabo after he overtook him round turn 1. And you can see there the Renault doing all he can. He needs to close the gap on Nicholas Matteo, but that's going to be hard considering that Nicholas Matteo is on fresh soft tyres. And you can see there further out Falcon Roy and Napadovsky still continuing the battle that they had earlier on. And indeed, you can imagine that they're both going to be fighting to the very end here for that P2 spot. Both of them on the podium, at least for now. Ruben Vallejo still in the midst of things here, though. P4 for the Williams car as he makes his way around the final left, the 90-degree left-hander. Ruben Vallejo will be joining them any second now because he's only 2.6 seconds behind Falcon Roy Arnouts, who's now 0.6 behind that of Napadovsky, and he's getting close here. The DRS is certainly working for Roy Arnouts. They come down towards turn 1, and the Ferrari and Napadovsky looking very vulnerable indeed. Indeed, the Red Bull closing at a rate of knots every lap here, heading around this Azerbaijan street circuit. And as you can see, they're making their way around turn 1. Napadovsky still holding on to that P2 advantage. 2.5 of a second separating these two now as they come around turn 2. Indeed, the DRS will become active for Falcon Roy this time. He'll have his chance as we now see Ben Szabo rounding turn 1. In hot pursuit is Mr. Anker, who is on reasonably fresh old medium tyres. Only 3 laps amassed onto that compound. Looking further up, of course, Ben Szabo still trying to push and a prod, but Mr. Anker is not going away on, and neither is Ben Szabo. And you can see these three joining up the contingent of Nicholas Matteo, and Nicholas Matteo must have damage here because he's on 3-lap-old softs and already struggling. And indeed, it's 1 second who's actually managing to pile on the agony here as they come down towards what will be the next left-hander. Nicholas Matteo in that Alfa Romeo, joined by that of the Renault, and you can see the end plate damage on that Alfa. And indeed, Nicholas, even though he's on reasonably new soft tyres, you can see that end plate is missing on the front right hand of that Alfa as they come up through what will be the next castle section. And as he does so, he looks like a wounded animal, this the Alfa Romeo in P6, and he's being chased by 1 second at a rate of knots here, who is on fresh medium tyres and looking menacing, coming round towards the next left-hander. Very soon they'll be at turn 15, the notorious bend that could cost so many front wings here at Baku, and indeed he does, and manages to round it, but very sluggish is Nicholas Matteo, and he is in a lot of trouble here as they round the final left-hander. And indeed the Renault plugged all over the back of the Alfa here, and indeed he'll have his chance as he'll use the RS here along the straight. Here comes Falcon Roy trying to tackle Napadovsky as they make their way down towards turn 1. And indeed, Nicholas Matteo in P6 is under the same stress, as you can now see 1 second, who's in P7 trying to tackle that of Nicholas Matteo as they come up towards the line. Here's the Renault, got a chance for P6 here, defending is Nicholas Matteo. They go to the left-hander now, and indeed they go round together, and it's going to be the Renault that snatches the advantage here. P6 for 1 second, but for how long? Nicholas Matteo still hanging on. These two, oh my word, contact heading around that turn 2 section, and as they make their way down the next DRS line, it's going to be Nicholas Matteo with the DRS this time. He can hold on to that P6 if he can just literally break deep, and he does. He breaks deep, and that nails that P6 back for him, but he's still under pressure because PRS 1 second is still gunning for him here. A late break and a lock up there by Nicholas Matteo, who is now down in a P7. A phenomenal move here by 1 second, and a twist there as they make their way around the next right-hander. The Renault has actually managed to snatch it now. Nicholas Matteo not able to battle back on PRS 1 second. A devastating series of events here that could have caused an accident, no shadow of a doubt, as we now see Nicholas Matteo coming up through the castle section. Ben Zabo in hot pursuit, Mr. Anker. These two have been brought back into the fight. We are in lap 21 of 26 here, folks. I do apologise, I do have to stop for a drink because I got to say my voice is taking a hammering here on this one. And 1 second now, making his way around the next left-hander as they make their way down towards the final 90-degree left-hander. PRS 1 second now clear by 0.6 of a second. And Nicholas Matteo there in behind him, who is trying to charge back despite the damage on his car. Ben Zabo, who is currently down in P8 as well, trying to let loose, as well as Mr. Anker, who is in P9. And indeed, Mr. Anker closing the gap every moment of this straight. As you can now see, Ben Zabo in P8 as they come down towards turn 1. The Ferrari looking to break late here. Can he make a late charge here on Ben Zabo? He can get a switch back here if he's lucky as he makes his way down towards what will be turn 2. And looking at it now, Napadovsky, who's in P3, trying to let loose on Falcon Roy. Ruben Vallejo in P4. Simon Vigang, who's in P5. PRS 1 second, now in P6. And Simon Vigang, sorry, in P5. PRS 1 second, who's in P6. Nicholas Matteo, P7. Half a second in behind PRS 1 second, who is in P6. VSR Wills claiming the fastest lap of the race so far. Now in P11 after overtaking Getone, who's in the pit lane. And as we can now see, Napadovsky currently in P3 for the Ferrari team. And trying to chase Falcon Roy up through the castle section. The Prancing Horse is looking to once again do a number here on the top grid order in the top 3 places of the classification here, looking for those first points of the season. Nicholas Matteo is now dropped back from 1 second. He is now out by over a second as he's now crashed in the castle section, and Nicholas Matteo has crashed and become a cropper in that winding section of the track, and he's down to P10. It's been a very unfortunate run here by Nicholas Matteo. He has now dropped all the way back down to the P10 places. That is not ideal at all for the Alfa Romeo driver, and I'm sure Jana Watmi is watching on at this one here and really gutted at the performance of Alfa Romeo here today. Not something we're used to seeing, of course. Certainly a race to forget for the Alfa Romeo team, as you can now see Nicholas Matteo just straggling that car around. And of course he's going to have to go into the pit lane to get a wing change. As we can now see Ben Zabo trying to get out of the slipstream here of Mr. Anker. And indeed, Mr. Anker is cruising up at phenomenal pace. And indeed, the Ferrari bombing down the outside here, going down towards turn 1. And as they do so, Mr. Anker joined up with tandem with Ben Zabo. The two Italian teams now in together as they come down towards turn 2. Oh, a nudge there on Mr. Anker in the back from Ben Zabo. And certainly not a friendly love tap. That is certainly one to be reckoned with, as you can now see Ben Zabo, Nicholas Matteo out of the race. Alfa will not score points today. As you can now see the AlphaTauri team snatching and plodding away ahead of the Ferrari of Mr. Anker. You can now see that Ferrari literally plugged into the back, into the gearbox of the AlphaTauri as they come down towards the next left. Mr. Anker all over the back end of Ben Zabo as they make their way around the next right, heading down towards the tricky turn 7 now. The Ferrari going for a late maneuver into that dodgy right-hander, and indeed they touch wheels, and as they do, the Ferrari moves up into P7. A great move indeed by Mr. Anker, very daring. Not very often we see an overtake in that portion of the circuit. and they rise up through the castle section together, and the Ferrari will maintain that P7 position. Ben Zabo down to P8 now, half a second behind that of Mr. Anker. 1 second is literally, that gap between him and Simon Vigang is explosive at this moment in time. There is literally 8.7 seconds separating these two. Ruben Vallejo being joined by Simon Vigang. Ruben is actually trying to close the gap on Napadovsky, and he's got DRS on Napadovsky, but I don't think it's going to be useful for him just yet as they come out towards the line. And indeed, it might actually prove useful for Ruben. You know, he's going to make a late move here, coming down towards turn 1. And the Williams snatching P3 of what will be Napadovsky, who of course has had a great race here today. It's all falling apart at the seams now for that Ferrari driver. He is out of the podium spots. In behind, Simon Vigang now, also in with a chance of trying to tackle the top end for those podium places. Of course, we got literally 5 cars all challenging for these podium spots. Danny Moreno, though, cleared by a country mile, a distant memory. Danny Moreno leading the charge here in P1 position, and of course Falcon Roy in behind as well in P2. He is cleared by 3.2 seconds of Ruben Vallejo, who is now holding on to P3. We got an honest battle here between these 3 cars for P3 position. Ruben Vallejo currently occupying that place with Napadovsky in P4, Simon Vigang in P5, trying to break up the Cinderella story here, as we can now see Ruben Vallejo leading them up through the castle section. In behind, Napadovsky in P4, Simon Vigang in P5, PRS 1 second in P6, who's a long way back now from Simon Vigang. 8.1 seconds the gap. Mr. Anker 4 seconds behind, 1 second. Ben Zabo in P8, Falcon Nardi in P9, VSR Wills of course P10 after a very tricky race for him today, notched him down by 21 seconds away from Falcon Nardi. Get Owned, of course, the story that we all thought would turn around for Get Owned after his return to Tier 1 racing here at ORL. He is now at the back of the classifications at this moment in time, but Danny Moreno still leading the way and is well clear, and he will be starting lap 25 of 26. We've got 2 laps remaining here, folks, of this Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It's been absolutely scintillating here. I hope you've all enjoyed this replay. And, of course, we're looking forward to seeing what happens at Canada on Sunday, as we can now see a move here by Napadovsky, heading down towards turn 1, looking to fight back to take back his podium spot. And indeed, as they do so, they go wheel to wheel down towards turn 2, and Ruben Vallejo looking to break late. Simon Vigang brought back into the fight. He has now got a 3-wide chance here, making their way down towards turn 3. The DRS is open for Napadovsky. It's also open for Simon Vigang. These two are going to go hammer and tongs down towards the next left-hander, and Simon Vigang is unable to capitalise, manages to try and hold on to P4 for at least for now. Here comes Ruben, cannot capitalise, heading around the next right-hander. Napadovsky back into P3, Simon Vigang up a spot, but Ruben Vallejo, the big unfortunate one in this case, that's for sure, dropping down none other than 2 positions in that one bend alone. Not ideal, all because he didn't have the DRS, as they come down towards the next right-hander just before the castle section. Napadovsky still holding on to P3, but for how long can he hold on to it? Simon Vigang, oh my word, he brushes there with the wall and loses his part of his front wing, that's for sure, and that will allow Simon Vigang through. Ruben Vallejo as well, of course, who's now moved up into P4, and that Ferrari, after having such a promising outing from the get-go, has now dropped down to P5. Ruben Vallejo now in with a great chance of securing a podium spot. He's in behind Simon Vigang just before they start lap 26 of 26. The final lap of the race is nearly enough upon us here, folks. Looking ahead, you can see Danny Moreno still in front. In behind him, we got Falcon Roy. In behind him, we got Simon Vigang. 7 seconds separating that of Falcon Roy and Simon Vigang right now. Ruben Vallejo in P4, 2.5 tenths of a second in behind that of the Haas car as they come up towards the line. The DRS is working here for Ruben Vallejo. They come up towards turn 1. The Williams moves alongside, and it's Ruben's time. It's Ruben Vallejo. He tackles the top end into P3 and he notches Simon Vigang down a peg. The Williams moves up the grid order and will now contend and try and hold on to this podium spot as he makes his way around turn 2, down the stretch between turns 2 and 3. We're in the final lap, folks, as Simon Vigang moves alongside with the DRS, powers through P3 now for Simon Vigang. These two are going to be battling it out here on the last lap. Advantage to Simon Vigang at this moment in time as they come down towards the next right-hander. Indeed, the Haas and the Williams. Both of them have been battling at the back of the grid in real Formula 1 all season, but this time they're battling for a podium here in ORL, as you can now see 1 second in P6. Ahead of him, Napadovsky away by 2.5 tenths of a second. Mr. Anker in P7, Ben Zabo in P8. 1.5 seconds in behind Mr. Anker. But 1 second now, you can now see him trying to chase on the back of CRG Napadovsky, who has, of course, got severe damage. Ruben Vallejo coming out of the castle section, chasing that of Simon Vigang as they round the next left-hander out of the castle section. Danny Moreno is still your leader as we can now see Napadovsky slowing down again, and his teammate, in fact, overtakes him and moves up into P6. It allows 1 second to move up to P5. But nonetheless, as they make their way through the last stages of Sector 2, you can see Simon Vigang with Ruben Vallejo all over his back end. Danny Moreno is going to win this Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Just look at the architecture here at Baku as we can now see them round in the final series of bends. Danny Moreno wins the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. A phenomenal visit there by the Spaniard. Falcon Roy Arnouts will come home in P2. A great race from him as well. Simon Vigang will come across the line in P3, but of course, he won't stay there because it's going to be Ruben Vallejo who wins it on penalties. A phenomenal visit here by Ruben Vallejo. 1 second, in fact, jumps up to P4. A great race for him and gets his way up into P4. Simon Vigang relegated to P5 after the penalties he's accrued. Mr. Anker, P6. Ben Zabo down in P7. Falconardi, P8. CRG Napadovsky. VSR Wills in P10. Get Owned in P11. Rounds off the classifications, folks. But what a race it was indeed. Nevertheless, the battles were absolutely enthralling. And I got to say, it was an absolute corker of a race, this one, folks. We managed to get it back. It was an absolutely phenomenal race. Certainly lots of drama, lots of DNFs. And I hope you all enjoyed that stream. Certainly a special one, that's for sure. My voice just about hanging on there. Of course, I did say to myself that I wouldn't do another solo race after what happened at Spain. Mr. Anker getting the game driver of the day. And Ferrari in the points as well this season. We'll go through the final grid orders as well, folks, as we now see Danny Moreno tackling this grid classifications, taking P1 indeed throughout this race. And indeed, as he shakes the champagne bottle and sprays it here amongst his colleagues and the fans here at Baku. A phenomenal race indeed. And plaudits to Roy Arnouts as well on claiming that P2 position. Ruben Vallejo back on the podium once again this season. What a race. And there's your classifications, folks. That's confirmed it. Danny Moreno is your P1 man for this race here at Baku. Falcon Roy, P2. Ruben Vallejo, P3. PRS 1 second, P4. Simon Vigang, P5. P6 for Mr. Anker. And of course, you've got Ben Zabo in P7. Falconardi, P8. Napadovsky, P9. Wills in P10. Geto, P11. Nicholas Mateo, P12. Tvetskov, of course, was DNF'd as well as Nicholas Mateo. In fact, we actually had more DNFs there for Kevin. DNF'd as well. And it DNF'd right down the grid order. Absolutely unbelievable, though, folks. I hope you've all enjoyed that one. Of course, I certainly did. It's been nothing short of first class. And I certainly enjoyed it, that's for sure. And we'll look forward to seeing what happens in the future. Of course, we've got Canada right around the corner. Of course, you now see my hand disappear there through the screen. The wonders of green screens, folks. What can I say? But what a race that was indeed. I very much enjoyed that. I hope you all did as well, folks. Please leave a like and a subscribe to ORL as well. Don't forget as well, we are at Canada on Sunday for the Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Don't forget to check out the HyperX giveaway as well on the Twitter feed of ORL. Don't forget to pick yourself up one of these headphones as well. Enter to win a pair of these, folks. They are absolutely brilliant. And check out HyperX as well. Leave them a like and a subscribe, a follow, whatever you want to leave them. Just check out all the socials and just like everything. I like everything. Give it a thumbs up. And give me a thumbs up as well. I'd like a thumbs up. But it's been a pleasure, folks. Please leave a like and a subscribe. It's been a pleasure. My name's been George Morgan. I'll see you next time for the Canadian Grand Prix on Sunday. Don't miss it. I'll be there. Goodbye.